The email came in at 4:23 p.m. on a Friday, right on schedule. That precise window when people who make cowardly decisions hide behind, send and disappear before consequences can catch them. I watched it sit there in my inbox. Unread. Bolded. Quietly pulsing like a warning I already understood. Subject Recompensation Adjustment Review. I didn't open it right away. I took a slow sip of my now cold coffee and leaned back in my chair, scanning the open office of Helixora Systems, a fast-growing tech company in downtown Seattle that smelled like ambition, overpriced espresso, and quiet desperation. To my left, the sales team was celebrating something loud and meaningless. If you're curious about what that email said, and what I did that made them lose an $81 million contract, make sure to keep watching and like this video. Don't forget to tell me where you're listening from and what the temperature is there right now. I'll read every single comment. Now, let me tell you what really happened. My name is Erica Lewis. I'm 42 years old, senior contracts and intellectual property analyst, which is corporate code for the person who reads everything no one else bothers to understand. The invisible firewall between brilliance and disaster. I finally clicked the email. Hi, Erica. Thanks for your patience regarding your compensation review. While your performance continues to exceed expectations, due to internal reallocations within legal, your raise was unfortunately not approved this cycle. Let's revisit next quarter. Best. Daniel, HR business partner. I read it once, then again, lost in legal. I almost laughed. I am legal. Or at least, the part of legal that actually keeps this company from signing away its own future. This was the third year in a row. 3 years ago, it was budget uncertainty. 2 years ago, market volatility. Now lost in legal. Meanwhile, I had personally processed a $20,000 retention bonus for a junior developer who had crashed our system twice in a single week. I didn't slam my keyboard. I didn't march to HR. I just sat there, very still. Because what I felt wasn't anger. It was something colder, something sharper, clarity. They didn't see me as leverage. They saw me as furniture reliable, silent, replaceable. And in that exact moment, I realized something they hadn't. They had no idea what I was actually worth. You should know this story is fictional, with support from artificial intelligence to make it more vivid and engaging. But I believe you'll still feel real emotions and walk away with meaningful, valuable lessons hidden inside it. So, let's continue. I leaned back in my chair and let the noise of the office fade into the background. Laughter, keyboards, the hollow celebration of deals no one had properly read. My fingers rested lightly on the edge of my desk, but my mind was already somewhere else. There was a contract, not just any contract. The Orion Dynamics Agreement, $81 million over 5 years. The deal that had put Helixora Systems on the map. The deal the executives loved to brag about in investor meetings. The deal that funded the glass-walled offices, the catered lunches, the illusion of brilliance. I knew that contract better than anyone, because I wrote it. Not the glossy summary slides, not the sanitized executive brief. I wrote the actual agreement, every clause, every contingency, every line that no one else had the patience or discipline to understand. I could still remember the night I finalized it. It was close to midnight, the office nearly empty, the city lights reflecting off my monitor. Back then, Helixora wasn't powerful. We were desperate. Orion had leverage. And they knew it. They wanted equity, control, ownership. We couldn't give them that. So I built something else. A structure buried deep in the legal language, precise, conditional, invisible to anyone who didn't know exactly what they were looking for. Clause 14C. I closed my eyes for a moment, replaying the wording from memory. If Helixora achieved sustained system performance beyond a defined threshold, combined with large-scale data processing benchmarks, then the intellectual property framework would shift, not ownership, not exactly something more subtle, a shared royalty model. And inside that shift was a single line that mattered more than anything else. The original IP architect would would receive a 0.5% commission on the gross contract value. Me, at the time. It was a safeguard, a way to protect the creator if the company ever forgot who built the foundation. A quiet insurance policy written into the bones of the deal. No one questioned it. No one pushed back. The executives were too focused on closing. The legal team skimmed it. Orion's counsel noticed. Of course. But it didn't hurt them, if anything. It made the structure stronger, so it stayed, signed, filed, forgotten. Years passed. Leadership changed. New executives came in, confident and careless. They inherited success without understanding how it was built. And like most things, they didn't understand. They ignored it. But I never did. That night. I didn't go out. I didn't meet friends. Didn't scroll mindlessly. Didn't try to distract myself from the quiet weight pressing in my chest. I went home, poured a glass of red wine, and opened my laptop. If Clause 14C was still alive. It needed proof. Not theory. Not memory. Data. My access hadn't changed over the years. No one ever thought to restrict it. To them. I was harmless, reliable, invisible. So when the system required elevated permissions to pull historical performance logs, it didn't even blink. I logged in. The dashboard loaded slowly, rows of metrics stretching back months, then years, uptime percentages, processing volumes, system stability reports, the kind of data executives brag about in presentations without ever understanding what it actually means. I started with uptime. Quarter 1, 99.993%. Quarter 2, 99.996%. Quarter 3, 99.998%. I paused, 3 consecutive quarters above the threshold. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I pulled the processing reports next. 8 terabytes, 12, 19, all well beyond the requirement. I leaned back in my chair, the glow of the screen reflecting in the dark room. There it was. Not theoretical anymore. Not a possibility. A trigger. Clause 14C had been activated, not recently, 18 months ago. I sat there for a long moment, letting that sink in. 18 months of silence. 18 months of revenue flowing through that contract, while the one line that actually mattered was completely ignored. Or conveniently forgotten. I opened a spreadsheet and began calculating. 81 million over 5 years, even conservatively. The accrued portion already processed put my share well above $400,000. With interest, penalties, and delayed notification clauses, closer to $500,000. I didn't feel excitement. I felt something steadier, heavier, control. This wasn't just money. Money was the surface. What mattered was what it represented. Proof that the system they relied on, the success they celebrated, was built on something they didn't even bother to understand. And now, that ignorance had a price. I started exporting everything: performance logs, internal reports, executive summaries where they proudly cited the exact metrics that had triggered the clause. Every document neatly time-stamped, undeniable. By the time I finished, my desktop was filled with evidence. I closed the laptop slowly. They thought my raise had disappeared into legal. They had no idea legal had been quietly accumulating interest this entire time. Sunday evening. I sat by the window with my laptop closed and my phone in my hand. The city outside was quiet, painted in fading orange light. But my mind was razor sharp. I wasn't guessing anymore. I had numbers. Proof. Leverage. Now I needed pressure. I scrolled through my contacts and stopped at a name I hadn't called in over a year. Daniel Reeves, General Counsel for Orion Dynamics. Not a friend. Not exactly an enemy either. In our world, people like Daniel were something else entirely. Professionals who understood the rules so well, they knew exactly when to bend them and when to let them snap. I pressed call. He answered on the second ring. "Erica," he said. Voice calm, measured. "It's Sunday. Should I be worried?" "Only if you enjoy compliance violations," I replied. Leaning back in my chair, I was reviewing the Orion Master Agreement. Specifically, Clause 14C. There was a pause. A real one this time. When he spoke again, his tone had changed. Sharper. Interested? That clause still exists. It does. And it's been triggered. Another silence. Heavier now. I could almost hear him recalculating everything on his end. They've met the performance thresholds he asked. 18 months ago, I said. And no notification, no payment, not a single acknowledgement. Daniel let out a quiet breath. Not surprise. Recognition. That puts Helixora in breach. He said slowly. Not just internally. With us. Exactly. I didn't need to say more. He understood the chain reaction. If the IP architect hadn't been compensated, the entire licensing structure was compromised, which meant Orion wasn't just a client anymore. They were exposed. What are you asking for? Erica, he said. Nothing, I replied. Not yet. I just thought you should know, before I make it official. A faint, almost amused sound came through the line. I'll have my team review this immediately, he said. If what you're saying holds, we'll issue a formal audit notice first thing tomorrow morning. That would be appropriate. And Erica, he added, voice lowering, once that letter goes out, your company won't be able to ignore this. I smiled slightly, staring out at the darkening skyline. That's the point. I ended the call and set the phone down. The first domino had just been pushed. Monday morning arrived like any other. Coffee cups, half-finished conversations, the soft hum of people pretending to be busy. But at exactly 9:07 a.m., something shifted. I saw it before anyone said a word. The email from Orion Legal hit the system, marked high priority, flagged across executive channels. It went first to Michael Grant, our CEO, then forwarded to Ethan Cole, head of legal. Then, like clockwork, it landed exactly where I knew it would, my inbox. Subject urgent audit request. Clause 14, C compliance. I opened it slowly, even though I already knew every word inside. A formal notice, clear, precise. A 48-hour deadline to provide proof that all royalty obligations had been fulfilled. Failure to comply would result in immediate escalation. I leaned back, watching the chain reaction unfold through internal forwarding threads. Michael sent it to Ethan with a short message. Handle this. Probably routine. Ethan didn't even open the attachment. He forwarded it again. To me. Erica. Orion is asking about some clause. Legacy contract stuff. Draft a standard compliance response. Don't overthink it. I stared at the screen for a second. Then I smiled. They hadn't read it. Not the clause. Not the numbers. Not the threat buried inside perfectly polite legal language. They saw paperwork and assumed it was noise. They handed it to the one person who knew exactly how dangerous it was. I clicked reply. Hi, Ethan. I'll need to pull the original agreement and cross-check performance data to verify compliance. This may take some time. I'll keep you updated. He responded within seconds. Sure. No rush. No rush. I closed the email and created a new folder on my drive. I wasn't going to rush. I was going to wait and let the clock run out. By Tuesday morning, the pressure hadn't reached the surface yet, but it was building underneath. You could feel it in the small things. Slightly shorter replies, slightly tighter smiles, the kind of tension people don't name because they don't fully understand it. Then came the finance meeting. I sat quietly near the end of the table, notebook open, listening as Ryan Mitchell, our CFO, scrolled through the latest reports. He frowned slightly, tapping his screen. Accounts receivable is delayed, he said. Orion payment hasn't cleared yet. Anyone know why? Ethan shrugged. Probably routine. Legal sent some audit request. I passed it to Erica. Ryan nodded absently, then paused again. Wait! What's this? He turned his laptop slightly, eyes narrowing. There's a flagged liability here. Something tied to royalties. The room shifted. We don't pay royalties, Ryan said. Almost annoyed. We're a SaaS company. A junior analyst across the table spoke carefully. It's tied to Clause 14C. It's been accruing based on system performance metrics. Silence. Ryan's expression hardened. No, that's not real. That's legacy junk. It's in the contract, the analyst replied. Quieter now. Ryan leaned forward, voice sharper. Then it's a system error. Remove the flag, reclassify it. The analyst hesitated. But if auditors remove it? Ryan repeated. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just watched as the cursor hovered, then clicked. The red liability warning disappeared. Just like that. A documented obligation, erased on command. I lowered my eyes to my notebook and wrote down the time. Because in that moment, they hadn't solved a problem. They had created evidence. If you think Ryan Mitchell did the right thing by removing the legal liability, comment agree. But if you believe it was reckless and a serious mistake, right big mistake. I'm curious, what would you choose? One decision can reveal everything about a person. That afternoon, I didn't return to my usual routine. No more quiet compliance. No more pretending this was just another internal issue that would resolve itself. I opened a new encrypted folder on my personal drive and started organizing everything. The HR email denying my raise. Ethan's message telling me to handle the audit. System logs showing the exact moment Clause 14C was triggered. And most importantly, the time-stamped record of Ryan ordering the liability flag to be removed. Every file had a place. Every detail mattered. I wasn't collecting documents anymore. I was building a case by evening. I had a complete timeline, clean, precise. Impossible to dismiss as coincidence or misunderstanding. They hadn't just ignored the contract. They had actively chosen to override it. That crossed a line. The next morning, I sat across from Laura Bennett, my personal attorney. Her office was nothing like Helixora, no glass walls, no curated minimalism, just stacks of files, sharp eyes, and a presence that made people think twice before speaking. She read everything without interrupting, page after page. Her expression never changed. When she finally looked up, she leaned back slightly. They didn't just make a mistake. She said calmly, they documented it. I nodded. They ignored a contractual obligation, suppressed a financial liability, and reassigned the audit back to the person affected by it. She continued, that's not negligence, that's exposure. What are my options? I asked. Laura didn't hesitate. We move on two fronts. First, you claim your unpaid royalties. That's straightforward. Second, we prepare for a retaliation and compliance case. If they try to silence you, we escalate. She slid a draft letter across the table. Don't send this yet, she said. Wait until pressure comes from Orion. Then you send it. That timing protects you. I looked down at the document for the first time. This wasn't just strategy anymore. It was inevitable. Monday morning felt unusually calm. The kind of calm that only exists right before something breaks. At 8:50 a.m., the entire company gathered for the monthly all-hands meeting. Rows of employees standing shoulder to shoulder, coffee cups in hand, half listening as Michael Grant stood on stage talking about growth, momentum, and how Helixora was entering its most successful quarter yet. I stood near the back, close to the exit, watching, waiting. At 8:57 a.m., the double doors opened. Two men in dark suits stepped inside. Not tech casual, not consultants. Real suits, the kind that didn't belong in a room full of hoodies and sneakers. Behind them, Daniel Reeves. The room shifted instantly. Michael stopped mid-sentence. Can I help you? One of the men walked forward and handed him a thick stack of documents. You've been served. Silence fell like a switch. Michael blinked, flipping through the first page. What is this? Daniel didn't raise his voice, but every word carried. Orion Dynamics is terminating the service agreement, effective immediately due to breach of contract. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. That's an $81 million contract. Michael stammered. It was, Daniel corrected calmly. Now it is a legal claim exceeding $120 million, including damages for unauthorized use of intellectual property. Someone dropped a cup. Coffee hit the floor, unnoticed. Ryan stepped forward. Pale. This is a mistake. We didn't. You failed to comply with Clause 14C. Daniel cut in. And you suppressed a known liability tied to the IP architect. The room went completely still. 200 people, and suddenly, no one moved. Then Daniel's gaze shifted toward me, one by one. Heads turned. I stepped away from the wall and walked forward. No hesitation, no rush, just quiet certainty. Michael looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Erica, what is this? I met his eyes. My raise, I said softly, wasn't lost in legal. I held up the envelope in my hand. It was right there the whole time. 10 minutes later, we were in the boardroom. Glass walls, polished table, silence thick enough to feel. On one side sat Michael Grant, Ryan Mitchell, and Ethan Cole. For the first time since I had known them. None of them looked confident. The energy had shifted, completely. On the other side, it was just me and Daniel. Michael cleared his throat. Erica, we can fix this. Whatever this is, we can resolve it internally. I didn't respond immediately. I placed a single document on the table and slid it toward him. You're right, I said calmly. We can resolve it, but not the way you're thinking. Ryan leaned forward, voice tense. This is about money. Right, fine. We'll pay whatever adjustment you think is fair. I almost smiled. This stopped being about an adjustment a long time ago. Daniel tapped the table lightly. Helixora currently owes Ms. Lewis approximately $482,000 in back royalties, including accrued interest. The number hung in the air. Michael exhaled slowly. We'll pay it. That's the first condition, I said. I met his eyes. Steady, full payment, immediate. He nodded. Second, I continued. A formal written acknowledgement to the company that this was an internal failure. Not a misunderstanding. Not lost in legal. A failure. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Third, I want control over contract compliance. Full authority to audit agreements tied to revenue and intellectual property. Ryan's expression tightened. He understood exactly what that meant. And finally, I said, my voice even, I report directly to the board. Not legal, not finance. Silence again. Michael looked at the paper, then back at me. You're asking for a lot. I didn't look away. You're about to lose $81 million, Daniel added quietly, and face a lawsuit worth far more. That was the moment it broke. Michael's shoulders dropped slightly. The fight left his eyes. Fine, he said. We'll sign. He picked up the pen. And just like that, everything changed. The transfer hit my account 3 days later, $482,000 and change. Clean, immediate. No delays this time. But the money was never the real outcome. Within a week, everything inside Helixora shifted. Ryan Mitchell was gone. Quietly escorted out before noon on a Tuesday. No announcement, no explanation, just an empty office and unanswered questions. Michael stayed, but not in the same way. The board stepped in, tightening control, limiting his decisions. The man who once spoke without pause now chose his words carefully. As for me, I moved into a new office, new title, Director of Contract Compliance and IP Governance. Nothing moved without my approval. Months later, I received another email from HR, compensation adjustment approved. I smiled, typed a short reply, and hit send. Thank you. Let's make sure it doesn't get lost in legal again. Through this story, I've come to realize something powerful. I learned 3 lessons from this story. First, never underestimate your own value, especially when others fail to recognize it, because sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the most leverage. Second, details matter more than appearances. The truth, the power, and even justice often hide in the fine print that most people ignore. And third, silence is not weakness, It can be strategy, patience, and strength waiting for the right moment to act. I didn't win because I was louder or more aggressive. I won because I understood the system, and I respected the details when no one else did. Now I'm curious which lesson stayed with you the most. Was it knowing your worth, paying attention to details, or having the courage to act at the right time? Share your thoughts in the comments. I truly read every single one. If this story gave you even a small shift in perspective, consider subscribing, liking, and sharing it with someone who might need to hear this today. Your voice, your experience, your perspective, they matter more than you think. And together, we're building a community where every story has value.